What you do? No, stop it. No, it's okay. Just for a wee second. Look, Mr. Cameraman, can you please tear away your gaze, tear away your lens, just for a second from my skeletal, hirsute, androgynous, almost quite feminine, actually, visage. Just for a second, just a wee look there, a wee look down behind me there onto the sacred tarmac of the sacred Ibrox car park, just outside the back of the Brimlin Road stand. This part of it, near that's the Bluebell gates here. And can you see those puddles? Can you see the rain bouncing off them? Can you hear the pitter patter, the lashing of tyre against water, basically? Have you ever known it to rain like this in July in Glasgow? It's the 6th of July, people. And it is raining, almost torrential rain in Glasgow. No, I've never known that happening in the summer in Glasgow either. I think that can only mean one thing. I think it's final confirmation that the gods, the spirits, the Valkyrs, whatever, the fates are just doing one final wee tribute to that night nearly 33 years ago, 32, just over 32 years ago. Well, the one tiny patch of dry terra firma in all of Ibrox town was found forensically, gorgeously, viciously and artistically simultaneously by Super Scott Nisbet. It took out about 3 Club Brugge players on the halfway line, just over towards the technical area, and sent over this arcing ball that pinpoint accuracy bounced off the one patch of dry grass in all of Ibrox and all of Glasgow that night, and then it bounced achingly, slowly, archingly, gorgeously, tantalisingly over their goalkeeper, and you're thinking that's going in, and it did. It looped slowly into that back of the net. In the back of that net, it was almost sexual, it was, and the place went utterly crazy. Rangers recorded their first ever Champions League proper victory, the first ever Champions League, Ibrox, the first ever home victory in the Champions League group stages by beating Club Brugge by 2-1, and I'll never forget those celebrations. I'll never forget the celebrations. My dad in his seat, he was just sat there because he's a Kilmarnock supporter. He was sitting in the seat in his house in Ardrossan, and he says to me, "That's quite good. That's good. They've taken the lead. Don't know how that managed to go in, And I had been jumping up and down, scraped myself off the ceiling, and just sat back in the seat that was actually my mum's seat, But she was probably at work, and it was Safeway, I think they called it then. It was still Safeway, wasn't it? Morrison's back in 1993, so she was working late that night, and it was live on STV, so I wasn't there. That there the new is the first time I've ever seen Club Brugge live, and I'm sorry if you've heard this patter before. I know it's the same old patter for Fat Eck, but I wasn't at that game, and it's tortured me for years for many various reasons. I wasn't there the night Rangers fight. I was at the Marseille game, the first ever night of the Champions League proper, and I was at the Marseille game where we drew 2 each. We come back against a team in all white. We're 2 goals down, and we come back to 2 each against a team in all white. Oh, the coincidences are piling up here, the symbolism. And I was at the game against Leeds United. Leeds United, oh my God, our vice chairman's their chairman right now. I was at the game against Leeds United earlier on that season, which was effectively a Champions League playoff. Battle of Britain, we won that to get ourselves into that first ever Champions League group stage. But there only was 8 teams. There was only 8 clubs in the whole of Europe in the Champions League group stages back then. It was a quarter-final group stage. And but the thing is, Alex, if you weren't there, what's going on with that pennant then? Are you some sort of big hypocrite? Are you one of these guys that buys tickets online for games he wasn't at and then tries to pass it off as if you were at the game? No, I was here. I was at Ibrox that night. I was outside, and it was like this. I'm going to shrug at the rain, and it was warm. It was warm and it was wet. Always a sign that things are going to end up going really well. I'm sorry, that's terrible. I'm rusty. It's pre-season, nobody's in their best game. We're not expecting miracles pre-season, remember that. It's just as long as we get to know each other, that's building up familiarity, getting your match fitness back. I was in that job. I'm sorry, I've done this before. I've told you this before, I know, sorry, but we've got a few new subscribers, so they're going to have to get as bored as you. I'm going to have to wear them down the same as the rest of you if they're going to go through an entire season listening to my pods. But I'd had this job I was working, which basically just to pay off the debt I'd built up in my late teens and my early 20s following Rangers. Going to see Rangers home and away, having a season ticket and all that. I'd given up the season ticket. Was it worth it, Alec? I was going back to full-time education. I was trying to complete that O-level woodwork that I'd failed so many times at school. I was determined to get it. So you got an education, Alec? I don't really notice any education. I know it maybe wasn't worth it, but it's something I felt as I had to do. Looking back, I probably should just have gone to the games and kept working the old 9 to 5. But I was working a wee job in Glasgow city centre, and I'd been to the Marseille game, I'd been to the Leeds game, but this is me, I couldn't afford to go to any more, but the temptation was too much, and I got myself some cash together, and I came out here trying to get myself a spare ticket, hoping somebody outside would be sitting. It was like this, it was raining, it was warm, and it was raining. It was March by the time we played that game? Might have been. And I wanted to get in so badly, and I just couldn't. Nobody, there was no spares going about, because the place was mobbed, wasn't it? It was a sellout. It's a massive game, and I had to make a decision. I remember an agonising decision at some point in time that I was either going to just miss the game both ways. I wasn't even going to be able to see it on telly, because I couldn't afford to go to the booze on that, because it was the drinking that basically it got my debt so high that I was having to work for an extra 2 years to pay it off before I could go back to full-time education. But I couldn't go to Boozer to watch the game. I wasn't going to get a ticket to get in, so I had to decide, get back down to Ardrossan, just get back into Central Station, get the train down to Ardrossan. So I was basically out here at tea time, hanging about for about an hour or two, and then I had to make that decision. I'm not going to get it. There's no spares going. And as some sort of pathetic reminder, I way to be there vicariously, but this turned into a pathetic reminder of the pain of not having been at that game. I got myself that big pennant that you sometimes see hanging behind me in my converted outhouse that I do most of these pods from. Well, it's not converted, I just put shelves in. It's got some shelves for IKEA and slapped them up and put some books in them. Do you see a headrest behind me? See, when I'm doing the pods, do you see a headrest behind me? You ever wondered what I'm actually sitting on when I'm doing the podcast? I just need to get it out of my system. The Rangers stuff builds up. I'm consuming Rangers 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I just need to get it out of my system when I'm in the podcasts from the old outhouse. But sometimes I've got that pennant up there, and it reminds me, as much as it reminds me of that beautiful, every time I see that Scott Nisbet goal, I don't know if it's because I wasn't there, but every time I see that Scott Nisbet goal, I cry. I cry. It fills me up with emotion. Oh, emotion? Who doesn't say that, Alex? Instead of emotion, it's rusty. It's pre-season. I'm really sorry. There's going to be a lot of that throughout the course of this overly long podcast. But it makes me super emotional. It was a massive game. It was a massive night for us. Our first ever home win in the Champions League group stages, and I wasn't there. So today, this was lovely to finally see Club Brugge live. That was as lovely as it was to see Russell Martin's Rangers for the first ever time. How you doing, folks? This is your Fatek immediate post. Rangers have prepared for a huge European tie against a club whose only appearance in the final of the European Cup / Champions League was lost at Wembley in the 1970s by playing another club from a completely different country whose only appearance in the final of the European Cup / Champions League was lost at Wembley in the 1970s. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet through the course of this season. It's every Friday live, 9 p.m. on the Jersnet YouTube channel. Every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. the flagship show. Stuart, Frankie Knuckles, Franklin and his band of absolute legends. Just the boys at Jersnet are different level. All doing it for free, all doing it for the love of the game. Get on that when Jersnet is on air. I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by the new ITV4, the Victorian detective series. Two detectives that cross the class barrier. I've discussed this before. Get on it, folks. It's Thelwell and Purdy. Thelwell and Purdy, new detective duo. Lord Kevington Thelwell of Goodison Gardens and Molyneux Manor, and he's is incorrigible, I mean, frankly quite disrespectful at times, but super reliable and razor sharp of mind. Valley, Dan Purdy. In this week's episode, they solve the greatest mystery of the Victorian period, which is the Whitechapel murders. Jack the Ripper, they catch Jack the Ripper, and it's 5 minutes long, and that's the only episode of the entire series, and that is the only series of Thelwell and Purdy, because there's no red herrings, there's no conspiracy theories. There's no false turns. There's nothing about their personal lives. They don't get their backstory. Every kind of second scene to keep that ticking along. There's no kind of series long through story, backstory. The stuff that's there's a wee twist to it every week, where you're getting an individual case being solved, a kind of police procedural type thing being solved within every episode. No, there's nothing like that. That is it. It's that guy Sickert. It was a guy Sickert, the painter. It turns out it was him. He was Jack the Ripper all along, and they just catch him and they take him to the police station and he gets hanged. That's it. It's because I've been on holiday. I've been away. I was supposed to go to Bruges. I was actually supposed to. I didn't go to Bruges because Rangers. I didn't go to Bruges like in Belgium, the actual city. In Bruges. Colin Farrell and Big Brendan there, fantastic film. But I didn't go. It's no Ralph Fiennes' best performance. I love Ralph Fiennes in an almost sexual way, but that's no his best performance. But it keeps it just light enough. I think if Ralph Fiennes had been really good as the the kind of head of the kind of bad psychopathic gangster, it would have been too dark. So it works really well in Bruges. But I was supposed to be in Bruges, but I couldn't get back in time. It was going to be too complicated. I can't remember the exact reason. So we went to Berlin instead. Changed our holidays. We actually changed our holidays so I could get back and finally see Club Brugge in the flesh. Or did I do it just so I could see Russell Martin's first game as Rangers manager? My name is Alec Anderson. Hi, yeah. We just sold the club. And I don't know if I'm asking for too much, but there were really lovely guys. They were proper Rangers supporters. They were lifetime Rangers supporters, and they were super enthusiastic and passionate about the club. But all I seem to want is finance, hedge fund, 6'5", blue ties. Looking for a man in finance, hedge fund, 6 foot, blue ties, finance, hedge fund, 6 foot. 6'5", yeah, because remember he made that joke at the EGM. He's quite really personable at the EGM, wasn't he? Cavenagh. He was really funny. We're all laughing. It's a bit like when remember David Money said that thing about every time Celtic spend a fiver, we'll spend a tenner. That was funny. Oh no, that's no funny anymore. Oh, that's not funny anymore. Sorry, no, we hate him now. We hate him. Don't we? No, it's no. I'm no. Just as I say, I was away last week, and you're still getting the wee things on your phone, and just suddenly you've signed a guy. Thelwell and Purdy, they just suddenly signed the guy. There was no big build-up. There was no kind of rammies between Rangers supporters saying this rumour's true, this rumour isn't true. There was no Fabrizio Romano getting involved. It was just done, and that's why the ITV4 series is only 5 minutes long, because they just get straight. There's no drama, is what I'm saying. There's no drama. They just get the job done, and we need that so badly. There is no doubt whatsoever that the consortium that now owns Rangers, the experience they have, it's the money. Primarily, it will always be about the money they have, but the experience they have in running an American sports club of a different scale to us altogether is absolutely ginormous. The San Francisco 49ers, I think, are they 6th or 5th or 6th biggest sports franchise in the entire planet. Well, so that's going to take a lot of sporting experience from the Parag Marathe, and he's taken that to Leeds United. They've been there for a few seasons, Parag Marathe. And we're bringing in Andrew Cavenagh, who used to play in goals for somebody and can crack the jokes, apparently at the EGM and the Toon. So we love him, but at the same time I noticed that at the same time I was just like, oh my God, we've signed somebody else. I'm in Berlin, I'm just getting the notifications on my phone. No rammies, no rumours, nobody texted me going, big man, what do you think? We're going to sign this guy, by the way. It was just, no. This guy has arrived at the club. We've signed this fella from Luton. We've signed this fella from Peterborough. We've signed this. Oh, we knew we'd signed the boy from Dundee. We signed this guy for Leeds United. They were just there. So it's very professional, and I feel absolutely rejuvenated. Though you would know, looking at me, by this new consortium taking over. I feel kind of chilled about the whole thing. I feel like a massive sense of relief, to be quite honest. There's no ecstasy yet. We're going to get that when we start winning trophies. There's no total celebration. There's no total confidence until we start seeing what's going to happen under Russell Martin or whoever has to replace Russell Martin. But even if Russell Martin turns out to be a shockingly bad head coach, which I don't think he will be, I just feel that the team behind him are going to make sure that the kind of Purdy and Thelwell and Marathe and Cavenagh themselves, Patrick Stewart, they're obviously on it. They're all completely on it. They're all super. I mean, Patrick Stewart's experience at Manchester United for all those years. They're going to have the contacts, if nothing else. It all seems to be working like a big smooth machine, and I feel as if they'll soon get rid of the head coach if it's not working with him. Even the coaching team he's bringing in as well, they're just arriving, that's it. There's no hoopla about it on the go, so I'm really happy. But the other thing I got a notification about when I was away on holiday trying to enjoy myself, but you can't help looking at the phone even when you're in your hotel room half pissed on Bill or Kindle, and Paul Anner, €1.09 for a litre tin of Paul Anner in the shops in Berlin. Absolutely, that's less than a quid, you know. But one thing, you can't help looking at the phone anyway, and you saw the notification that David Murray had decided several weeks to speak up and say something, and he's obviously just doing it. What didn't help was he's doing it in a total prostitute style way, selling his wares. He's got a book coming out and he's just wanting to get a bit of publicity for it, a few interviews and all that, because he couldn't have anything that's going to be a failure, could he, Sir Dave? So that's him. We've just finally got back to pretty much the state that we felt most comfortable in, the state that most of the Rangers support right now was raised in, which is under the ownership of David Murray. That's the last time we felt this comfortable. Maybe the first half of his reign, which was 23 years, his involvement was 23 years long, so it wasn't all bad. But it's just getting back to that point. You want to get rid of the drama, get rid of the controversy, and just focus on the team and the one guy who's been noticeable by his silence since 2011 decides to pipe up at this point in time. Not a good move, Sir Dave, not a good move. And I find folk feeling the need to tell me, to my face, you were wrong about David Murray and all that, and like, what? Aye, okay, whatever. I just, it's not a case of I'm some sort of David Murray zealot or anything like that. It's just, I feel that there's always been a failure in the Rangers support to appreciate what we've got, what we've not got. Sometimes it gets a bit black and white, and David Murray, as I say, 23 years, was it 16 league titles, a European final, that the first ever time in the Champions League group stage. We're in the first ever Champions League proper, we're a goal away for the final in Marseille. Pretty much cheated by Marseille, it has to be said, as a few clubs were, in all fairness, and I think cheated by Club Brugge as well. Pretty ropey they were at that point in time. Just filling in the corners at Ibrox, getting us the club deck, Murray Park, which I still nearly call it sometimes, but of course we're calling it Auchenhowie now and not explaining why. I feel as if it's just like he was totally evil. He did nothing for us. That's just bullshit. I remember straight away when everybody was going crazy for Dave King, I'm thinking he's got like 234 charges for tax evasion in South Africa, but we all hate Murray and we never liked him because he got the admin rang on one bit that took about 15 different appeals for HMRC because they were trying to make an example of somebody that got the government behind them, somebody that was a huge well-known example, but it wasn't actually going to cost the government any real money if they took the business elsewhere, because we can't take the business elsewhere. It wasn't Google, it wasn't Starbucks, that's what I'm saying. It just happened to be us. They go in a wee technicality. Everybody seemed to forget they were screaming at Murray to do everything, do it cheaper and get us more success in Europe and in the league and all that. I remember it, what it was under David Murray, and we won 9 in a row was something that had hung over me when I was a kid, that Celtic had won 9 in a row and we hadn't. So that's now a Rangers record and a Celtic record. We nearly won 10 in a row, quite frankly. I took that down to the last kick of the season as well. So, I obviously handing over to Craig White was quite a thing, but everybody wanted him to hand over to Craig White. It was basically, the entire support was just getting more and more active in their hatred of David Murray and wanting him just to leave. And people were celebrating. They were celebrating when Craig White took over. And as the man said in his interviews, it was all legal. He had the proof of funds and all that. And this whole thing of, but you must have known Murray. Well, I knew looking at Craig White, he was dodgy as fuck. I knew looking at Craig White, he was an asset stripper. But I was getting told to shut up by all sorts of Rangers supporters running about me. And there's a lot of Rangers supporters going to the BBC. They're going to the Pacific Quay to protest outside the BBC because there was that Mark fella, what his name, did a wee documentary all about how much of an absolute financial vandal Craig White was, and we didn't want to hear it. No, that was being disloyal. So can we maybe just Cavenagh and Marathe, they're a multi-club ownership American consortium model. Seems to be the way to go these days. If it's a way to go in Scotland, apart from anything else, Hibs and Dundee United. I know at Hearts, the Jambos now, they could be a serious problem in the coming seasons because Tony Bloom for Brighton and Union St Gilloise, and is he into somebody in Australia as well? Or is it in the States? Maybe it's both. But the multi-club kind of billionaire consortium type scenario is it's all the rage these days. It's de rigueur, but it's that Cavanagh's brilliant, and he's cracking the jokes and saying all this stuff. Quickly it can turn to. I mean, it's not as if guys who are making their money through hedge funds, through financial insurance and that kind of thing are suddenly going to it's not as if David Murray's reign get affected by the global financial markets or anything like that. It did. I'm being sarcastic. So that means we should also be worried about these guys. Just trying to make sure we don't go in there cultishly just now on these guys. But I feel generally great about it. What I'm saying is David Murray's no different. David Murray's no different for these guys we've got just now. And that's pretty much the kind of scenario I want to get back to, where it just feels like Rangers are going to be the club they should be. As I said in a previous painfully long pod, it's not about Rangers necessarily gaining some sort of sudden advantage over the rest of Scottish football. It's just about exploiting the natural advantage we have, which is the size of our support. Not that there was a massive support at the game today. I think you'll be lucky if that crowd is hitting the 30,000 mark. There was probably more substitutions today than there was people in the rusty. It's pre-season, we got the pod I did about the takeover. The pod I did about the takeover being confirmed. Was that an hour and 19 minutes long? That was your kind of beep test. That was it towards the end of the season. Just after the end of the season, that was your wee beep test. And the one I did that was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Just about my general feeling, the whole state of play just now financially and Russell Martin and all that. That was your Gullen Sands. That was Gullen Sands. That was Jock Wallace just working you into a state of collapse and being sick and what have you. And now it's pre-season. It's let's see how we play together. Let's see how we can perform tactically and what have you. A lot of new players, not as many as we probably like, but a new manager, a new coaching team. New tactics, new style, new owners, new kit, and there's new these plaques, these tiles. That's been extended. That's been extended during the season as well. The pitch looked brand new as well. It looked absolutely sparkling today. Always does, doesn't it? The pitch always looks just really enticing in the first pre-season friendly, which is super early because we're entering the Champions League super early. But everything feels new and everything feels it's more like all I'm feeling just now is relieved that we have been taken over, that we are in safe hands. But it's we've been in that situation before, and I don't see it could quickly go badly. It took 23 years for it to go badly under David Murray, and we were still winning league titles. I remember that. I liked Murray. I liked the first half of Murray's reign, where it was like 9 straight titles. But I wasn't. No, I was losing it with the second half of his reign. It was just like one European final and only winning every second league, getting Walter Smith in for a second time, and Walter only won 2 major trophies in each of the full seasons, each of the 4 full seasons in his second coming, and got us to a European final, and 3 of those major trophies was consecutive league titles. No, I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't happy with that part of Murray's reign. I know Craig White took over right at the end of it when the prick came out onto the park to unfurl the flag as if it was the end of the day with him, the first game of the following season. That was all the confirmation we needed. He was a psychopath, but we wanted Murray gone. He's just got to sell, and a few times he refused to sell to people who he didn't think were going to have our best interests at heart, but eventually he just went. So let's just take down the kind of blind hero worship of Cavenagh and Marathe just now, and see if anything changes globally right now. If they happen to become from a country that's maybe got a president who's a bit scatty when it comes to the financial stuff, maybe they'd soon be withdrawing their investment, not just from Rangers but from Leeds as well. So let's not get ourselves too kind of cultish about these guys, but everything feels fantastic. This was Russell Martin's first game in charge of the day. I am talking to you after Rangers have just drawn 2 each with Club Brugge, and Russell Martin's first full proper game in charge of Rangers. Michael Beale's first game in charge of Rangers was also against a club, that would be Bayer Leverkusen, who had lost their only appearance in the European Cup / Champions League final. It was also in Britain, but it was at Hampden. I was at that one, Bayer Leverkusen, and all I'm saying is Michael Beale won 3-0. It was during the World Cup. Remember, it was the day of the England against France, the quarter final. Actually, that was played that night. I saw that game, but I missed Morocco beating Portugal that afternoon, the World Cup quarter-finals in Qatar, because I was here to see Michael Beale's first game in charge of Rangers. I think 13,000 folk there or something, and he beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-0. Bayer Leverkusen, that would soon break Bayern's stranglehold on the Bundesliga title, and the same season would end up in the Europa League final in Dublin. And so, Michael Beale, well done. So this is, I don't know what I'm actually trying to say here. Club Brugge lost the 1978 European Cup final to Liverpool at Wembley, is what I'm trying to say. And again, a repetitive thing. I need to see as many European finals, clubs that have appeared in the final of a European competition, a proper European competition, no the Super Cup, no the Anglo-Italian Cup, no the Anglo-Italian League Cup, no the Latin Cup, no the Mitropa Cup. No, I just mean, like, your Fairs Cup / UEFA Cup / Europa League, your European Cup / Champions League, or European Cup Winners' Cup, or your now the Conference League. And there's 106. Real Betis became the 106th club to appear in one of the main European finals last season. That was their first European final, and they get scurried 4-1 in the Conference League final in Wroclaw. But I'd seen them. We'd all seen them, hadn't we? I'd seen them at Ibrox. I didn't go to the away leg, but I saw them at Ibrox. Michael Beale beating them in the home game, and a certain Philip Clement beating them in the away game. So there's 106 clips. I'd seen them, so I went up to 78 with that one, just without having done anything. As soon as they reached the European final, I'd already bagged them. And today it was number 79, me finally getting to see Club Brugge. And the beautiful thing about them today, Club Brugge, was they wore their all-white kit. And when they've only reached 2 European finals, Club Brugge, we've reached 5. It was the 1976 UEFA Cup final. It used to be played home and away, and they lost that to Liverpool. And then 1978, their only other European final was the European Cup final at Wembley, and they lost that 1-0 to Liverpool. Liverpool won the European Cup for the first time the season before that, beating Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-1 in the 77 European Cup final, and they'd beaten Borussia Mönchengladbach in the 1973 UEFA Cup final. Quite weird, that's quite a weird thing, quite coincidental. That Liverpool played Real Madrid 3 times in the final of the European Cup / Champions League, only clubs to meet 3 times. I know teams that play in a lot of European finals are bound to end up meeting the same club in different finals, but it's still quite a weird thing that Liverpool do. They seem to play the same teams all the time. But I remember that night watching Club Brugge. The first European Cup final I remember is 1977 when Liverpool beat Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-1, and I just fell in love with continental football right there and then. I was happy that Liverpool won. I was just a kid at the time. I was only like 7, coming up 8 years old. But Borussia Mönchengladbach were in the all-white with it was green as well. And even by that point I was very anti-green. But it was green with the kind of black and green of Borussia Mönchengladbach doing the sleeves, and it was just a different. When strips were, when the European games were actually you genuinely looking into another world. It's all very generic now with globalisation, what have you. But I just thought this is the most beautiful kit I've ever seen in my life. And I had my mum going around the shops in Saltcoats asking for a Borussia Mönchengladbach kit in the days when you can only get Rangers, Celtic, Scotland, and latterly Liverpool. In the following season, Liverpool are back at Wembley, and Tommy Smith, who'd scored the goal that turned the tide, put Liverpool back in front in the 77 final. He was supposed to retire the following season, didn't bother. He had another great season at Liverpool, and he's back in the European Cup final, but he dropped a hammer on his foot, I think it was, did a bit of DIY around the house, and he missed that final, and it was a pretty pish final. But Liverpool suddenly had 3 Scots. They didn't have any Scots in the team when they won it in 77, the European Cup, but they were up against Club Brugge, and they had Hansen, Souness and Dalglish in the team, and Club Brugge were also wearing, and I think it's the same in both legs of the UEFA Cup final in 76, this all-white kit, but with lovely, they're blue and black, the blue and black of Club Brugge down their sleeves, on their cuffs, just giving a lovely European look. I'm thinking, what a kit that is. But they didn't really get into the game at all, Club Brugge. And of course, famously, that was Souness, future Rangers manager, did the old thing of, I was just going strong. I was just trying to go strong as the ball get headed out, kind of poor clearance at Wembley, 78 European Cup final, and the ball comes to Souness at the edge of the box, and he's just trying to go strong to make sure the guys that are coming in to clock him can't get, and he just ends up dinking a lovely, beautiful ball to Kenny Dalglish, who even more beautifully, Kenny Dowell dinks it over the out Russian Borussia Mönchengladbach keeper and last Scotsman to score the winner in the European Cup final? Nope, that would be John Robertson 2 seasons later, again scoring the only goal of the European Cup final for Nottingham Forest. As Scotsmen, just that's in the days when Scotsmen could be the best footballers in Europe. And the boy, sorry, I can't believe it, but there's a guy, the wee sweepy guy, who just got out the wee sweepy truck. The first time I've ever actually seen him in the flesh. This must be like the first time I've seen Club Brugge in the flesh. And now it's the wee sweepy guy who gives us, myself and Colin Armstrong of Jersey FM, give us so much hassle doing these pods. He's just doing his job. He's just doing his job. We don't have to be here. But it's always circling and making hundreds of noise and what have you. But he's actually out there and he's got the black and the blue on. You know, in testament to Club Brugge. So it's pre-season. I'm rusty, but Ken Dalglish scoring for Liverpool there, the winner in the European Cup final. The following season, '79, you had John Robertson. That's John Robertson of Scotland, Nottingham Forest, who would go to be an assistant at Celtic, putting the ball to the back post for Trevor Francis. It's for all the Celtic people who score in the European Cup final, play in the European Cup final. It's quite amazing, the Scottish connection. It's all Celtic, but with Rangers, it's all like the foreigners. You know, Trevor Francis scoring the winner in '79, Basil Bowley scoring the only goal of the game. That in another final played at the Olympic Stadium in Munich for Marseille, he comes to Rangers. Stefan Klos, Robert Pritz, Sergio Parini, all these guys who play the Champions League, fighting on Daryl Pursell. They come to Rangers. It's foreigners at Rangers, but it's all the Scotsmen are always at Celtic. So I don't know why we're supposed to be the bigots when we obviously embrace all nationalities and all faiths. And Celtic just want somebody local. Take that into the new season with you. Ken Dalglish scored the only goal that European Cup final. I'm really repeating myself here, but Club Brugge, I didn't get to see them. So they've become 79. I've got 79 at the 106 now that I've seen in the flesh, and it was all about me today. It really was. At Liverpool in the European Cup was a thing that became a nightmare for me when I finally saw Liverpool. I've seen them in a pre-season friendly as well at Ibrox. I've seen them in the UEFA Cup and the Europa League at Anfield, just to get the opposition, Bordeaux and Benfica, first time I'd seen them, get them off the list. European finalists that I hadn't seen in the flesh. And I did that by nipping down to Anfield to see them, and I saw them in a pre-season friendly. Came to Ibrox, they beat us 4-0. That was 2008, 2009. That was brutal that day. Steven Gerrard, absolutely majestic in midfield for Liverpool, but the only time I've ever seen Liverpool in the trophy that I grew up watching them. The first European Cup final, the second European Cup final, I remember Liverpool were winning them. They won it in 81 as well. They won it in 84 as well. I was watching these games live on the telly as a kid growing up. Liverpool were the European Cup when I was a kid. And the first time I finally got to see Rangers playing Liverpool live in the flesh in the European Cup, they beat us 7-1. It's probably the worst night I've ever had at the football. And as you'll remember, a certain Mo Salah, the modern day Ken Dalglish, he can never be a Ken Dalglish. He scored a hat-trick, the fastest ever hat-trick in Champions League history. It was a brutal night for us, and all three of those goals. He'd been on the park for a few minutes, and then he was joined by one Diogo Jota, who came on a few minutes later as a sub, and he's got the assist. He's got the assist for all three of Salah's goals that night. Has Diogo Jota. Salah did a lot of work for each of those goals, but the assists for each of them were equally vital if you have the guts to watch that hat-trick back. I saw that boy in October at Hampden playing for Portugal in the Nations League. Absolutely unbelievable. Just horrendous. And I was away on holiday and the whole of Germany and all was talking about that. Obviously it was all over the news headlines, and it's just an absolute tragedy. Terrible thing. It's like somebody you don't know, somebody who's got all the money in the world and all that. You don't know them personally, but they can have a major effect on your life, in good ways and bad, but in a sporting way. And it was a terrible tragedy. And I think football fans all around the world are thinking about Diogo Jota's family right now. So today, this was it. Russell Martin. As I say, this is really rusty, folks, because I've been away in Berlin on holiday. I went away for the week, and it was it's the fourth time I've been to Berlin. Absolutely loved it. I think it's worked out well for me because I'm one of the people who likes to go somewhere foreign so I can be interesting because I'm Scottish. So I can. Oh, Braveheart, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. William Wallace, yeah, that's my uncle. I'm really interested to all the locals when I go on holiday abroad. But then when I come back to Scotland, I like to talk to folk about how I've been away on holiday in foreign places that make me really interested. I know it's only 2 hours direct from Glasgow Airport, and I know it's EasyJet, but you can get a stone baked margarita pizza for €5.75 on EasyJet. So I think you can get 2 bottles of Bombay Sapphire for €28 on EasyJet. You can get a bottle of YSL for far cheaper than you can get it in most high street perfumeries. It's Yves Saint Laurent, YSL's Yves Saint Laurent. I can't come up with these folk. You don't. I mean, this is a classy podcast, and these folk don't even know. So I like to come back, and it makes me feel really super interesting that I've actually been somewhere abroad and all that, and I start talking about like a total wank. So this coming back specifically for this game has been to go straight back into being able to wank on or wax on all about European finals, because we're playing Club Brugge, and my list of seeing all the European finalists live. It's actually been perfect for me. You've seen the documentary about Nottingham Forest when they won the European Cup and retained it, obviously, 79 and 80. I remember watching both those finals as well. And you'll see the bit where they talk about Brian Clough arriving. And the season ends, the domestic season ends, where they beat Liverpool after winning it in 78. Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest because Forest will win the league in 78 in England, and then Forest put them out in the first round of the European Cup the following season, the second round. And it ends up Forest get to the final, and Brian Clough, I can't remember the exact quote, it's a while since I've seen the documentary, great documentary about Forest winning the European Cup. He's away on holiday, between the end of the domestic season and them playing the European Cup final. And he just joins it. He goes straight to Munich, Olympic Stadium Munich, straight to the final, the Munich, where the final's been played from his, I don't know where he was on holiday, Mallorca, Marbella, something like that. And he goes in and he just gets the team together, first team meeting, and he just says, right, I've been on holiday, I'm having a lovely holiday, and after this I'm going to go back on holiday, and I'm going to go back as a European Cup winning manager, and here's how we're going to do it. And I feel like that right now, folks. I must admit, this is a terrible podcast for me, I'm sorry, but I've been on holiday, and I just came here to see Club Brugge, to get him off the list, and to see Russell Martin's first game as Rangers manager. And I'm going to go back on holiday, and I'll not be back until the Panathinaikos game. It's just a lovely feeling to have seen a smashing 2 weeks draw today, because it looked, when we went 2 goals down within the first 13 minutes, and then we had our first shot on goal, I think was at the 27th minute, and then Bruges went straight up the park and pinged one back off the inside of the post. At that point in time, it felt like it could be really bad. It could be a really bad debut for Russell Martin. And even then, I was just starting to rationalise. I'm thinking, but look at the starting 11. The starting 11 that was. It wasn't. I think most people pre-season friendlies, what they'll do, most managers put out the best team first. They field your best players first, and then as the game goes on, you start rotating, you start bringing on all the ringers and what have you. I've not been watching. This is what I mean. I've not been watching any podcasts. I've only seen 2 minutes of Russell Martin's 9-minute interview with Rangers TV yesterday, talking about this game, and he was talking about how it's the guys who are trying hardest and working hardest in training, they'll get kind of preference. It's all about people able to think while they're exhausted, because it'll be high exertion type of football that he's going to be playing. I think he's reacting against everybody. The Rangers support generally think we're getting a manager who's a bit too kind of theological, if you like, a bit too committed to passing football, to the passing game, and to patient football and building it from the back and what have you. I think he's just emphasising the kind of Jock Wallace stuff. They're going to have to work their backsides off. They're going to have to be physically really committed to this. It's going to be exhausting. Can you think when you're physically exhausted? Which is basics of football. But he's kind of been emphasising that. And it looked like today, I thought, who's been really lazy in training? Because the starting 11 was... we had... starting 11, Liam Kelly was in goals. We had the new fella Max Aarons, Max Aaron. He was at... right back. You think, Tav's not playing, Tav's in the bench straight away. Oh my God, that means the captain's getting dropped. You had Hefty at left back. You had Leon King and Robin Proper at centre half. I think, was it a 4-1-4-1 with Conor Barron being the one in front of the defence, but behind the midfield, which was Oscar Cortez was wide on the left. It's Finlay Cameron. Finlay Curtis. Finlay Cameron is a fella who, and I'm coming and going with a D. There's a Findlay and a Finlay involved here, and Finlay Cameron's a legend of the Fanatic podcast. And I keep saying his name. He'll think he knows I'm obsessed with him. He knows I'm obsessed with Finlay. But it's Finlay Curtis was wide on the right, and we had Kieran Dowell in the midfield. And who else was it? Nico Raskin seemed to kind of push wide left, and it was Danilo up front. And I remember the number 20 for Bruges. I don't know anything about Club Brugge. All I know about Club Brugge is they finished second, not by the same kind of distance as us. They finished a close second in the Belgian league last season to Union Saint-Gilloise, who we beat last season, and they won the Belgian Cup. You know, and that's the thing about no getting the bends, no getting carried away with all this kind of OT, the consortium. We've got a new manager making these signings really quickly. It's the fact that Club Brugge is where Philippe Clement played for 10 years, and then he managed them for a couple of seasons as well. He didn't win the cup. He won the Belgian league with Club Brugge as a manager. He won it with them as a player, obviously, but he won 3 Belgian cups with them as a player, and one of them at least. He was captain in the Belgian Cup final. Successful for Club Brugge was Philippe Clement, and with us he did the 2 different kind of pains, didn't he? 2 different kind of, like the oldest Glasgow derby, and we lost that. The first time Rangers have ever lost at home to a team from a league lower than theirs in the Scottish Cup, getting beat by Queen's Park last season. And the season before that, his other go at the Scottish Cup, we lost to a Jack Butland mistake in the closing stages of a Scottish Cup final, which we took the lead pretty legitimately until VAR decided to rule it out for really dodgy reasons. But that's, so there's all these associations with Michael Beale, and then associations with Philippe Clement. This is his club today, and a lot of the players look like young Philippe Clements on the part of the day, especially the big number 20. They've got the guys who are like a different size, a different scale. The biggest player I've ever seen played, it was Armand Oni. He was playing for Stranraer at Annan. I'm sorry about the background noise here, folks. I've just been drinking and eating even more than usual over the last week. It's absolutely roasted in Berlin last week as well. It's the continent was getting scorched, so I'm not at my fittest right now, and I'm very easily distracted. But a big Armandoni, he used to play for Hearts. I saw him later on in his career. He was playing for Stranraer against Annan at Annan in the lower leagues, and that's the biggest player I've ever seen on a football field, on a professional, not a league football field. A few boys in the juniors, almost as big as myself, but. And then you've got the world famous guy whose name is just totally escaping me right now. Oh my God, Romelu Lukaku. He's the biggest guy I've ever seen playing international football. I've seen him scoring twice against Scotland in the space of a year. At Hampden, won a friendly, won a qualifier. He's a phenomenal size, Romelu Lukaku. All muscle as well. It's terrifying. But you can see that it's that kind of league. The Belgian league, obviously very closely related to the Dutch. I think the Dutch side of the divide. Club Brugge, not quite as good as Zulte Waregem, who automatically make you feel as if you're speaking the lingo. But these were big guys. It was like Dutch league stuff, the Dutch the tallest race on earth, and the Belgium a breakaway country from France and the Netherlands, and they had guys in the middle of the part of the day that were just like Eddie Merckx on roids. Obviously, I'm not trying to say any Tour de France cyclists would ever do drugs. They were just that way. They're rangy, they're kind of skinny. But at the same time, they're just a different scale altogether for our players. And they had 4 or 5 of them in the park. And the one that was really summing up for me, the difference between the two teams in that first half, was the number 20. I think it's our captain. He's probably super famous, and I should really know who he is. But there was just a wee bit where somebody threw the ball to him. It was a throw into Bruges, deep in their own half. So we're up there shutting them down tactically and all that. And somebody lobs the ball to him, and he just boots it. But he's booted it first time. He just boots it back the way across to the other side of his defence, where there's none of our players really gathered, just to put it to like a centre half who's got a bit of space, just to help take it out for the back. Didn't look like much, but this ball's been lobbed to him, and it's no touch the ground. He's hit it first time, and he's just skied it about 40 yards across the front of his own box, straight to somebody's feet, and away they go, another attack, and you're thinking, that's what we're not doing. They've got that extra level of skill. They play a Champions League they go into the next round of qualifying. They're in the third qualifying round, Club Brugge, because of finishing second in the Belgian Pro League. But their season will be starting as well. I think they've got the same manager as well. as they had. I think he won the league with them the season before last, and came second last season and won the Belgian Cup. So they're probably a lot smoother. They're probably a smaller rotation of players. They certainly won't have the same upheaval behind the scenes that we've had over the last 6 months. But they're a bit more in the zone, and they were looking like a level, just a level above us in that first half. And it was 2-0 going on, 2-0 maybe going on 3-0, but we just didn't have anything going on at all. And I have to be honest with you, I'm talking about the whole pre-season thing, rustiness. I was just talking to my pals. My pal Davey, he'd missed a few games at the end of last season for various reasons. He was back, and he brought his wife along the day as well, who I've met before, his daughter's wedding last year. It just good pals. Anyway, so I'm chatting away to them endlessly, and I almost missed our 2 goals that we scored in the second half. We're just catching up and what we've been up to over the summer. It's that kind of game, that kind of day. What's happening with the Union Bears? What was happening with the Union Bears? Are they on strike? Is this a reaction to the club going in a bit heavy on them because of the not really working out what was happening with the tifo before the Celtic game last season, about the take aim at the rebel scum? I don't know if there's something about the Union Bears. There was nothing going on there. There's no organisation. There's no tifo there. There was no constant noise. I felt as if there was an actual strike there. That did not help with the atmosphere, which was very, very pre-season. But out we came in the second half. I think it was 5 substitutions at half time. Jack Butland come on, Diamande come on, and there was another 6 substitutions after the hour mark. I think we made 11 subs altogether. I think by the end of the game it was only Mason Munn, our third choice goalie. He was the only person in the whole squad. I mean, Dessers and Suter aren't in the squad, and at half time, I think it was a really good move by the club. At half time they brought on the 3 new signings just to remind us all that it's 2-0 down. We get booed off the park. There was a slight booing at half time when we went down the tunnel, 2-0 down to Club Brugge in a pre-season friendly. It's like, welcome to Rangers, Russell. I think we did well to bring out the 3 new signings. Joe Rothwell, the fellow for Leeds, Lyle Cameron, who had the pre-contract for Dundee, and the Assman, the guy who got Kramer's vanity plates by mistake at the DMV, the proctologist fella from Norway, Thelwell, we signed him from Luton Town, Thelwell Asgard, that is his name. Just be interesting to see if he gets a club card for Ian Skelly and what the plates are, what the private edge is on that. But it's Thelwell Asgard, he come on as well, the 3 of them, just to remind us, we signed a lot of players, it's pre-season. And also when we brought on like Bajrami, he started making all the difference in that second half. Played really well, Bajrami, in the second half. And if it's all about physical effort and running for 90 minutes, well, he's going to have to change his game under Russell Martin, under this new regime, because he didn't seem to put a lot of effort into affairs for the most part of his stay at the club last season, the Nadeem Bajrami. But his guys likes a Connor Barron, and it certainly looks like Nico Raskin and Diomande. Kind of surprised they're still here in many ways. Glad that they're still here. They might not be come the end of the season, come the end of the transfer window just now, but they did. It definitely changed things. Basically spent most of the game looking towards the Copeland Road goal. First half, it was all Club Brugge. The first goal they scored after Club Brugge scored after 10 minutes. A shot into, they were constructing things better. Just general movement was much better than ours. Quite smooth looking, and they had a shot from round about just inside the box, which Liam Kelly did well to parry, but he parried it straight to the feet of, I don't know if it was the same player. He just wasn't marked at all. He wasn't picking folk up. He just stroked it easily into a fairly unprotected net, and then it was about 4 minutes later. I turned round and I was talking to David. This is the thing, the big number 20, these huge guys that they've got playing for them. The whole point I was trying to make there, the big number 20 they had. I'm thinking, we've got our number 20 up against, who is our number 20? And Davey says to me, who's that number 20? I'm thinking, that looks like Kieran Dowell, who I always thought looked like one of the kind of rangy continental players until you see him up against a properly rangy continental unit who's properly stroking the ball about. He can't get anywhere near him. I'm thinking, but that looks like Kieran Dowell. I just thought we'd never see Kieran Dowell again. And that kind of thing always happens in a new season under a new regime. Remember Cammy Fraser doing really well under Souness, the first kind of season Souness taking over. We didn't actually sign that many new players under Souness. You're always going to retain a lot of the old squad. But I can't. And I suppose if Russell Martin's buying guys from Luton and from Peterborough and he's trying to. He's going to revitalise them, and they're going to work better at Rangers than the level they've been playing at would suggest. Then, aye, fine. You know, maybe Kieran Dowell has been at Birmingham City and doing all right down there from what I've heard. Maybe we should bring him back. He's going to have to come back anyway. It was only a loan deal. But he just wasn't at the races. That's when I was checking. I thought I'm going to have to actually look. I've not looked at I've not looked at Rangers TV. I've not looked at Rangers Twitter or anything to find out anything about this game. All on just making sure I got my ticket about a month ago. I checked up and it's like, it's Kieran Dowell. It is Kieran Dowell. You know, number 20, of course it is. And as I looked down at my phone, I just heard chunk, ball hitting the back of the net, and the Rangers support actually applauding. So it must have been a magnificent finish for Bruges' second goal, which I think was curled in from the edge of the box. But I completely missed it. And that'll teach me, like I say, it's rustiness, it's pre-season, I've not got my game on. But the second half would come out and a few changes, and within about 6 minutes, I think it was Cortez seized upon a kind of slack pass across the front of Bruges, making a slack pass across the front of their defence, and Cortez was on that, and he lays it off to Diomande, who a player I hope we hold on to, and if we don't, I want to be selling for 15 million, and he strokes it artfully into the bottom corner. And it was mostly us in the second half. Bruges are making changes as well. They did a substitution during the first half for an injury as well. Just lots of huge guys in midfield, and surrounded by normal sized guys. And it was a beautiful move. Bajrami gets in there, kind of intercepts the ball at the halfway line, just at the exact spot where Scott Nisbet took out those Bruges players and hit that goal back in 1993, 92, 93 season, the Champions League group stage. But Bajrami intercepts, was a quick 1-2 with somebody I can't quite remember who, Gentles or whatever. By this point in time, we'd made all the substitutions. Everybody that you know, except Dessers and Suter, everybody you know in a Rangers jersey that plays for Rangers was on the party except Mason Munn. And the only guy who played the whole game was Finlay Curtis, and Bajrami just does the hard work and then plays in Finlay Curtis, who strokes it into that same bottom corner in the 88th minute, and it's 2 each in the referee. I mean, we're talking a game in which there was like about 28 substitutions and he adds 1 minute. I've paid 19 quid for this, you know, but finally I've seen Club Brugge, we've drawn 2 each with them, and Russell Martin's Rangers, the kind of panic about Russell, it was abated in the second half, because we put out just the team he was fielding, the 11 he was fielding in the first half was obviously a really mixed 11 of reserve team players. Guys were probably trying to sell, guys he's want to see something of. It was a proper pre-season friendly. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell mostly because I was too busy talking to my pals for so much of the game and losing track of the substitutions and missing a goal by Club Brugge. But Russell Martin was not wearing the brogues. He was not wearing... I'm not being funny, right? But for a game where there was less than 30,000 folk, what's with all the trolleys? What are they actually carrying? There's no pies in them. And I'm like, I think this is just harassment. It's a conspiracy, the first conspiracy of 2025-2026 season I can exclusively reveal is to make as much bloody noise as possible for a hungover, fat, morbidly obese guy who could hardly get his seatbelt shut in the flight back, EasyJet. To make sure that I can only manage the most stilted, half-arsed, long-winded, confused post-match reaction pod. But that's the way the Rangers played the day in the first half, and we're a bit better in the second half because it is just pre-season. And I don't know, it's like... Did you see that thing with the guy? One of the things that I've not spoke to you for a while, so just stay with me if you possibly can. But I saw that thing in the news a couple of weeks ago in the Scottish news about the fellow who committed teabag fraud. The Scottish Teabags. He was going on as if he had a Scottish teabag empire, and there were Scottish teabags because he was growing the tea leaves in Scotland, and he was going to be selling this to it's locally sourced. It's Scottish tea, and he was selling it to like fancy hotels in Edinburgh, and they're like, oh, the American tourists will lap this up, mate. I give us that. It's actually tea that's grown in Scotland, and I mean, it's not that funny. I found it really funny, but there's actual real life consequences because, well, he got to jail, but of anything else for fraud. But he was, a few folk, he was encouraging other folk. And he said, oh, it's really easy. I've got massive fields and crops. I've got massive fields of Scottish tea growing all over the Highlands and what have you. And there's a few folk decided to copy him, and interviewing a poor woman who'd started her own business growing tea in Scotland. And of course, she's really struggling because it's just no we don't have the weather for it here. So it's financially, it's really cost her. The guy's a scumbag, but I couldn't help laughing when the reporter said this guy who he was getting on the tea. The tea was Indian. It was tea leaves for India he was getting in, and just pretending that he'd grown them in Scotland. But he made a wee fortune at it anyway, so he deserves a jail. But he was apparently a well-known kind of Walter Mitty character, a bit of fantast in that, just fantasist, a total liar. And he was telling folk, he was known for lying, said the reporter. For example, 3 other lies that he told, but he said he'd sailed the Amazon. He'd sailed the Amazon in a kayak. So he'd done the total Amazon in a kayak. He'd worked for the unexploded bombs unit, the bomb disposal unit in the British forces. He'd obviously seen Danger UXB like me when he was a kid. And he claimed to have invented the bag for life. What? The supermarket bag for life? He invented that. What a shit boast! And that's the thing. The third boast there is the crappiest one. It's really annoying, but it's also the one that's got. It just seems really out of sync. It's got the biggest kind of reach, the kind of global audience. You just get a bag in the. You get a bag in the supermarket when you're like, oh, I don't have my bag for life. That's going to cost me 5 pence or 10 pence or like 50 odd pence, whatever it is now, £1 sometimes. And this is a guy that invented that concept. And you're thinking, do you really want to be known as a guy? It's like me saying, I survived an airplane crash in the Sahara Desert. I just walked back to the nearest town. No, I survived. I was the only survivor. I was one of the guys that stormed the Iranian embassy. The SAS, I was one of the guys, back in 79 or whatever that was, and also I invented the phrase "wine o'clock." The last one, the third one, is the first two. You're obviously a fantasist. That never happened. But they're the kind of claims a fantasist should make. The proper wee boy stuff. Kind of I'm hard and I'm cool and all that. But the third one is just kind of like, what? I hate that phrase. That's how. No, but yet most folk know it. Everybody knows about something. Oh, it's wine o'clock. And I think, is that what Rangers are doing this season? We're doing that. The general feeling I'm getting for Rangers support is we're kind of like, let's finish a bit closer to Celtic in the league. First, we're setting out our ambitions this season. Number one is, it was 17 points we lost the league by to Celtic last season, but we scudded them home and away, and we scored 3 goals against Celtic at each of Hampden, Ibrox and Parkhead last season. I don't know when last time we did that in a season. We proved that 1-1 it's not a problem, and all they're better at is bullying everybody else, bullying all the wee teams, and that's something we've got to sort out if we want to start winning the league. But 17 points is a big jump, so I think we'd all be content if we're getting I don't know, 5-6 points behind Celtic by the end of this season. That would be a massive improvement. Ambition number 2, win a cup, if not both cups. That'd be great. I think that the Jambos are maybe looking good for a cup this season as well. Maybe Aberdeen are in about it as well. Ambition number 2, win domestic silverware. If it can't be the league, let's make sure we get a cup next season. Win something for a second time since 2012. That'd be fantastic. And boast number 3, or ambition number 3, seems to be get into the Champions League and just get totally scudded. Just be totally crap in Europe. Maybe put out all 3 competitions in the qualifying rounds before we get to the group stage, which is a possibility this season. Technically, that is possible. We will play 3 qualifying. We will play a second qualifying round, a third qualifying round, and a playoff round. It just depends on how we get on each of them. It depends what competition we're going to be in. But we could go out of 3 different qualifying rounds and no make the group stage, or get into the Champions League group stage by some sort of miracle and just get absolutely horsed. It just seems like the lack of ambition for Europe is the one that's going to make a fool of us. It's really annoying. It's got the biggest coverage. Like wine o'clock, most folk know that. The bag for life, most folk know that, and just hate it. And I don't want most of Europe seeing us getting absolutely scudded. And I don't want more people knowing that Rangers are losing games by us losing, for example, 3 different European ties that are getting picked up on TNT, and I've got people abroad. Everybody in Scotland always knows everything Rangers do, whether you love us or hate us. But it seems kind of weird. I like what we did in Europe last season. I really enjoyed it. I like what we've done in Europe in the last 7 seasons. It's been fantastic. It's been sensational. And I don't think as a support that we have circled the wagons enough at times. But when it comes to a European achievement over the last few seasons, especially with Celtic, it's like 22 years since they've got through like one round. They've won a post-group stage round in European competition. we're getting to, that's our third quarter-final since 2008. Third quarter-final since 2007 or 2008. Final in 2022 as well. And then, the quarter-final last season. We just don't go on about that enough, and I think it's absolutely magical. So, I'm not writing off. I think there's a general feeling amongst a lot of the Rangers support that we're just writing off Europe this season so we can concentrate on maybe even winning the league under Russell Martin if everything works really well. But the guys that were... I'm not on board with that. I'm on board with us winning the league. But I haven't been on board with us getting rid of European football as a way of doing that. And I can see why you would think that's the way to do it first time out, when you get a whole new team coming together. And then I get back from my holidays. I get back from Berlin. I get back from Europe. I get back from being all super exotic and interesting via EasyJet. And I sat on Friday night back in the house, and we got what have we missed? What else have we missed since we've been away? Glastonbury. We've missed Glastonbury. Oh, the controversy at Glastonbury. I saw it. The Irish. I saw that. The trick. The leprechaun fella, the guy in his 90s, the pure green leprechaun suit and the 4-leaf clover on the drum kit. And I just watched the highlights straight. There was a kind of 2-hour highlight programme. Just sat and watched that with a few drinks. Not really happy that the flight hadn't been cancelled or hadn't been delayed, and the taxi driver wasn't a psycho. And it was great. And I sitting enjoying it, and just before I could get the remote to work, to fast forward it, we had Doc Cotton was playing guitar for the guy, and it was like, they still sounded better than half the controversy. I'm going to Glastonbury Controversy. Aye, I'm right into the Glastonbury Controversy. I'm not shying away for that. And what I'll say is, there's just so many bands. For what I saw in the wee highlights package, so many of the bands, so many of the acts were just still in this day and age, wee lassies that are obviously, attractive wee lassies, but they're wearing next to nothing, but they can't sing. Their voices don't carry, there's no presence at all. It's all just style, and the only Rangers top or something, the Rangers top was at the Wolf Alice, but so, and the lassie that was wearing the Dallas Cowboys outfit, and I'm like 49ers hen, and then down in the front row there was a Rangers boy, and I was disappointed. No, I'm really happy for him. Happy was at Glasgow representing, but it's oh my God, it's all going off here. It's my controversial opinions, and I was thinking, this isn't right. And then I saw En Vogue, and my heart absolutely melted. And my controversial Glastonbury opinion, the only full set I've watched, the only full performance I have watched is En Vogue's set, the 40-odd minutes of En Vogue, and it's just, they're all the same age as me, En Vogue. Some of them even a bit older, believe it or not. And I remember that, it just took me right back. They were absolutely phenomenal. And it was obviously very sexy ladies, in the prime of their life and what have you, and an absolute just showing me up for the utter embarrassment I am as somebody is the same age as them. But maybe there's some control. Maybe there was something going on with their microphones or something like that to give them a bit of help. I don't know. I don't think so. They just sounded different class, and they've got the moves as well. And that was sexy. That was properly sexy because it was good. It was quality. It was tight. Their moves, the singing. It was so tight, and it took me back, of course, to my clubbing days and my pubbing days, and a single man just putting it out there and hoping for the best and loving songs that are, talking about that. And I do all my stuff. I'll talk to you about the Pixies, and I'll talk to you about Radiohead or John Martin and what. This isn't exactly the deep stuff, but it's maybe a bit more pretentious than other folk would. And I ignore the fact sometimes that running parallel with that is just, I never ignore the R&B. I'm always R&B first and foremost. But I remember, don't you want to be more than friends? Hold me tight and I had that. I've got the En Vogue album up my loft somewhere on cassette that I bought at the time. I used to play it to death, and just that feeling of the basics, what you need in life, that companionship, that love, somebody that's there all the time. And En Vogue, girl bands, I'm at that stage now where obviously at the time I totally fancied them, En Vogue, and there's been a few changes, not many changes to the lineup, but there have been a few changes since then. And TLC, God, nobody will ever be as good. I just remember one on Top of the Pops one night. I'm the same age as the lasses for TLC, at least the left eye not with us anymore, but I remember I think it was Scrubs they were doing, no Scrubs, and they went over to a studio in the States. So we're doing it live for Top of the Pops, but we're in the States, and it was just TLC, no audience, nothing, on their own, in this little studio in America, performing, just miming along to the song for the Top of the Pops audience back home. And he just did this wee minimalist dance routine and just went through it. But they were just such gorgeous, beautiful women. Just loving the music, just great singers and fantastic performers. It's just, my heart melted. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. And I always thought that's the top performance I've ever seen by, because I was the same age as them then. When I was a kid growing up, it was the girl bands of the 60s and all that. Whatever happened to the boy that I once knew? And because you were a kid, and because these bands are all split up before I was even born, it just all sounded amazing. It sounded like dramatic songs and what have you. And then I'm new at that stage where I'm looking at En Vogue, and I've maybe got the same kind of reaction as I was probably having as a kid back then, where I actually kind of want to be them more than want to be with them. You know, it's like the Dame Edna Every's talking about her son. You know, he's a real ladies' man. He's a real ladies' man. You know, him and his mate have got this total man cave of a flat where they live together. And in his bedroom, he's got all the hot actresses, pictures of the hot actresses up on his wall. You know, Rita Hayworth, Audrey Hepburn, you know, Louise Brooks. No, he's just a man's man. So I'm maybe getting to that stage with En Vogue. I'm watching them the other night, and I'm thinking, God, yeah, it's like glamour. I'm actually wanting to be them rather than be with them, as you say. But it's tight. It's not a girls' group anymore. It's a women's group. It's a women band, and it's properly sexy because it's so tight. It's so genuine. They've lived life, and they're performing. They're giving the audience exactly what it wants. And for all I love the European football, and for all European football is taking up more and more games over time, supporting Rangers as the group stage expands and UEFA have their war with FIFA. Michael Beale's first game as Rangers manager was a friendly against a club that lost the European Cup final or the Champions League final, and that was during a World Cup in winter. And here today, Russell Martin's first game in charge of Rangers is against a club that lost the Champions League final, and it's during a Club World Cup. There's this battle going on between FIFA and UEFA that's seeing the international competition expanding, but still, take me back to the basics. Take me back to 1989. Take me back to that feeling En Vogue gave me then and gave me on Friday night. That's why I see Rangers winning every week. It's the season ticket is all about the league, and I think I've got so used to us not doing well in the league, and so determined to find a way to still love my club despite the fact that they're kind of embarrassing themselves every now and then domestically, that I've just clung on to the European stuff. The R&B, the red and black socks, the soul is us doing it domestically, getting a League Cup, getting a Scottish Cup. We've had far too few of them over the last few years. And David Murray was in charge in 1989. En Vogue were hitting the charts 89, 91, and playing with my heart, you know, almost as much as Rangers were, because you had that basic desire that we've all got that we need to see fulfilled again, which is Rangers doing the business in Scotland first and maybe putting Europe in the back burner. Oh, I don't even know what I'm talking about, folks, but I think hopefully it all makes a kind of sense, and hopefully this season will make much more sense as it goes on. I think we're going to be all right with Russell Martin. Not a lot to be read into the game today, other than everybody got a right good run out, and Club Brugge went nowhere near to running right over the top of us, despite scaring us early on. The competence is there, and I will talk to you again in or around the Panathinaikos match. Go back to enjoying your summer trips. Thanks.